We're all sitting here waiting. Koi, you're not at Diamond Mountain. In your in your dreams, yeah. We'll wait a few more minutes and then let everybody rush in at the last minute. Okay, we'll get started. So welcome back. We're over halfway through. Well, we're right in between there, being halfway through, right? We're on class 6. And we're still reviewing Death in the Realms of Existence, which is course 8. And a couple of days ago, we spoke about the different realms, right? And the causes for being born in each of those 6 realms. So it's kind of like there's 6 different kinds of suffering there. Do you remember what those 6 were? That was part of your homework, was to review those. So anybody remember? No? Nobody? Oh, I had to switch to everyone. Life is not certain. Exactly. That's one of them. We're never satisfied. Yeah. Oh, they're coming up too fast now. I was just looking at Roxana's. Hold on one sec here. Scroll back up. We're never satisfied. Life's not certain. We shed our bodies over and over again. We also take rebirths over and over again. And nobody can come with us, right? We aren't satisfied. We have no companion. Shed our bodies over and over again. Ups and downs. Yeah. After the high comes the low. And then I think we all experience that roller coaster, right? There's highs, there's lows, there's highs, there are lows. We have to shed our bodies over and over again. Fantastic, you guys. Thank you for working on memorizing those. Yeah, because they're helpful to think about. The high and the low, I think that's part of what brought me to Buddhism. I was so tired of things being good and me being happy, and then they would get bad and I would be unhappy. And it was exhausting. I don't know about for you guys, but for me, it was quite exhausting. And it's one of the things that brought me to look for something that spoke to why that was happening and how I could change it, right? So this is how we take rebirth These are the things that force us to take rebirth, the causes for being born again. So if we don't want to be reborn again into a suffering world, if we want to be reborn as an enlightened being, then we try to first minimize these causes and then to get rid of them altogether, right? Like being satisfied with what we have. Finding out, understanding karma and seeds and how to plant the seeds, not to have life go, have to take lives over and over and over again. And another one of the kinds of suffering, one of the 6 kinds, is nothing is fixed. Right? We don't know when we're going to die. We don't know what's going to happen in the next 5 minutes. We have no idea. Things are constantly changing because our karmic seeds are ripening. Different seeds are ripening every moment. 65 per finger snap, right? So we're continuing about so we did how we end up in getting reborn again, but what are the things that keep us alive once we're reborn? And I recently taught this specific one for the teacher training, so it's kind of fun to come back to it so soon. We all need sustenance. We all need support for our life, right? There are certain things that we need to thrive and to be alive. And the most obvious one, the most gross one, and there's subtle and gross aspects of it, but the one that's most obvious that comes to us is we need food, right? Kamse. We need the kind of food that we bite and ingest in, in pieces, in portions, right? There are the subtle types, and they're called subtle because they don't produce pee or poo. They are things that are absorbed into the body. For example, still in samsara, those bardo beings, they thrive on smells. And smells are not something that we take in portions, right? We breathe it in, the smells. And I experience that every day when I walk into my house. I walk past some jasmine that's blooming and I breathe it in, and it's such a pleasure. It does. It's like, the sweetness of life, right? And it's a subtle kind of sustenance. When we smell delicious food cooking, then it sustains us until it shows up on the table, right? So that's a subtle kind. Also, the desire realm pleasure beings and the human beings of the first eon, and we'll talk about eons, they consume nectar, what in West Chinese language is called duzi. And that's also a subtle type of sustenance. And then the gross types, like the picture here, right, includes everything else. Say sakche, sakche, rekpa. So sakche means impure or stained. And rekpa means contact. And three things have to come together. Where you have an object, right? A sense power, we can say here our eye for perceiving it, and then our consciousness. Those three things have to be present. That's Sakche Rekpa. And when those three things come together, you have contact, the Rekpa. Just seeing the object gives you sustenance. We get sustenance from being near the object. You know, nobody dies 3 feet from a pool of water. Something would keep you going. Okay? Just because you see it. There's something there, you see it, you perceive it, and your mind processes it. And then there's the third kind, which is Sakche Sempa. Say Sakche Sempa. And again, remember that Sakche is impure and Sem is mind. So Sakche Sempa is movement of the mind. The movement of our minds sustain us as we continue through life. It's the thing which is the basis or which creates and sustains our bodies, speech, and our actions. Our mind, our thoughts. And an example here would be hope. There's no reason we would get out of bed in the morning if we didn't have some kind of hope for the day ahead. And when people get really depressed, that's what happens. They don't get out of bed. So the movement of the mind, and we know that movement of the mind and what results from that movement of the mind is karma. Right? Movement of the mind and what it produces. And then number 4 is Sakche Namshe, which is the mind itself. I don't have a picture here of the mind itself. It's kind of hard to picture. Without a mind, we wouldn't have consciousness. And therefore, we wouldn't exist. So the mind itself sustains our existence or any being's existence. So these last three types of sustenance, all beings have them. Only beings in the desire realm use the first type of sustenance, the kamse. Beings outside the desire realm don't need the sustenance of bits or portions. There are no tastes or smells in the form or formless realms. Interesting, right? Even in the form realm, where things have the highest form, the most beautiful form, they have no smell attached to them. It's like eating a strawberry without that sweet smell of the strawberry. Interesting experience to have, right? I really enjoy smells. So what is the function? How do these function, these different types of sustenance? They function to perpetuate our suffering life. As Sutra states, it says the four types of sustenance are the very root of sickness, cancer, and agony. They help bring about old age and death. In the Abhidharma world, it describes first empty space. Energy started moving and swirling, and it came together. And when it came together, it formed a diamond hard disc, the base. And on top of that water, with gold in the water, in the lower third of that base, and then Mount Meru was at its center. And it has 7 mountain ranges. So here we're getting into how the Abhidharma explains how the world was created. We've just talked about sustenance, how we keep this suffering life going. And now we're going on to the world and its inhabitants. So there's Mount Meru at its center, and there's 7 mountain ranges around it. And between each mountain range is an ocean. And there are 4 continents. And they named our continent Zambuling. And so our world consists of this disk and mountain ranges and hells and paradises and oceans. This is how the Abhidharma says our world exists. Now we're going to say, oh, it's not flat, it's round. Scientists have proved that, from outer space, they can see that it's a round ball. It's not flat. You're not going to fall off the edge if you walk too far. And that's the scientific explanation, and we accept that explanation, right? But do we know everything? So who knows? There is a core to the earth. We do have mountains. We do have oceans. It's an interesting thing to think about, right? So one of the things we're going to talk about that the Abhidharmists say exists are the hells. We can see the animal realm, we see the human realm. What about these hells, right? So in the Wheel of Life, this is a picture from the Wheel of Life. It shows the hell realms. Say Nyelwa, Nyelwa, and Sa Nyelge, Sa Nyelge. Nyelwa is hells. Sa Nyelge is the hot hell, or the hot hells. There are 8 kinds of hot hells, and they're stacked on top of each other. The lighter ones, meaning not so intense, are on the top, and the more intense ones are toward the bottom. And they are located directly under Bodh Gaya in India, the place of enlightenment. Right? So Yangsu, or revive, is the name of one of the hells. And it's this huge chamber, 90,000 miles. What's that? About 200 kilometers across. And it's a mass of confusion there. There's all this screaming going on. It's hot. And the beings there have hatred towards everybody else who's there. And so they're attacking each other with their hands or whatever they can find. And they continue doing this until they knock each other unconscious. And then they hear a voice that comes out of somewhere that says, revive, revive. It means like, get up, do it again, start all over, continue your fighting. And so they have a special kind of pain and agony of dying repeatedly, young, over and over again each day with no end to it at all. So we only feel the pain of death once in our lifetime, in each lifetime. Imagine what it would feel like to do it over and over and over and over again each day. And beings live there for millions of years. A moment of pain there is greater than all the pain we could ever feel in our entire life as a human being. And this is the lightest of the hot hells, the least intense. The second hell is Tiknak. Tiknak. And it's called Lines of Black. So here's a picture of a cow and how, at least in my country, a butcher cuts up the different parts of the cow. And so you can see it here marked with lines of black. So in Tiknak, the hell guards, those who are keeping the beings there, right? They cover beings' bodies with black lines, just like this cow. And then they use various kinds of blades to slice them open along these lines. So what happens? Really strong hell guards come along and they force you down on the hot ground. They put hot chains across your body, which leave black burn lines along your body. They get into describing this deeply, yeah. Other hell guards then cut you up along those lines. And each part of you that is cut up still feels pain. In this hell, you never lose consciousness. You always feel pain endlessly. And your body just regenerates, and then you start all over again. And then the third hell is called dujum, or gather and smash. So what happens here is the hell guards gather the beings together. They drive them into a canyon between mountains. And then the walls of those mountains start to move closer and closer and closer and closer until they smash all the beings there. Or else they collapse on top of them. Right? And then the mountains open. You get up and do it again. Right? They say that the rocks take on different animal shapes each time. Something to think about why that would be. And that as we go into more and more intense hells, the lifespan of the being there gets progressively longer. The fourth hell is the screaming hell, or Numbu. The ground of all the hells are iron and red hot. And here you're naked and there is nowhere to go to. And the ground in this particular hell is particularly hot, very hot. And you can't stand still. So you just run around, jumping, leaping, because you can't stay still and you're screaming. Your feet are being burned, right? First the flesh, and then the bone, and then your legs burn up, and you're running around on your knees, and then they burn, and you're on your hands, and then your body burns up. And then you regenerate, and you start over again. And the fifth hell is called the Great Screaming Hell. Numbo Chempo. Chempo means great, right? So we had Screaming Hell, and now we have Great Screaming Hell. And it's basically the same as Numbu without the Chempo. It's just that it's much greater. Right? Everything just hurts more. And then the sixth hell, Tsawa. Oh, I don't have a picture for this one. There's a metal hut with a sealed door, and you're put inside the hut, and then the heat is turned up. So you're inside without escape, no space inside it, nowhere to go. And it's like being in a roasting pan. You're being roasted alive inside this hut, running around, suffering until you're roasted, you die, and then you're revived. And you do it again and again. Number 7. So Raptutsawa. This is superheat. Here you're put into a chamber with 2 rooms, and you think that the other room is going to be better than the first room. And you run into it, but it's not any better. And you keep running back and forth between the rooms to escape. Your feet and legs burn up as you run back and forth. And then the most intense hell, the lowest hell, is called Narme. And this is the hell known as no respite. Because the beings who live here in this hell, they experience unlimited suffering without any interruption. The Sanskrit name for this hell is Avicii. I do have the West Chinese for it here. The suffering never gets less, and this is the greatest pain possible. The degree of pain is constant at this level, and it's greater than all the pain of all the other hells combined. They say a jet of fire hits you and you become incandescent. Incandescent is like, remember before we had LED light bulbs, we had incandescent light bulbs. And they had a little filament in them, right? That the electricity going through it made it glow, and that gave us light. And that's what happens to your body. So you emit some light and you emit some kind of noise, which is the only way to be recognized as a being. Otherwise, what you would see is just a column of flame, of light there. And this lowest hell has the longest lifespan that exists. How do we get there? How do we get to these hells? It's just like everything else. It's forced on us by our seeds. So I often wonder, why they go into such deep detail about these different realms. Is it to scare us? Do they really exist? I think almost every religious philosophy talks about hell. And the scholar Dante talks about visiting hell in Dante's Inferno. And it's very, very similar. So it makes one wonder, even though we can't see these places, whether they exist or not. If they do exist, they're not a place that we want to go to. Oh, I do have a picture for that one. Sorry. So we talked about eons earlier, just mentioned eons. This is, again, the Abhidharma's whole explanation of the world we live in, the different realms, the human realm, how we stay in our suffering realm, the hell realms, and then how the cycles which our world goes through. So kalpas is a word for eons, lengths of time, right? And in the Abhidharma, there are 4 different kinds of kalpas. We have here the Jikpa kalpa, the eon of destruction. During that eon, no more beings are born in Avicii, that lowest hell of this planet, right? Why? There's no time to go through Avicii hell if the planets are destroyed. If they're going to be born in Avicii hell, it's going to be on another planet instead, not on this one. So we're talking about the eon of destruction of this planet. Lifespans on Zambuling, on our world, reach 80,000 years. And then the eon of continuation ends. That's another kind of eon. And the eon of destruction opens. So these 4 things that I talked about, no more beings are born in Avicii, lifespans reach 80,000 years, the eon of continuation ends, and the eon of destruction opens. Those things happen simultaneously at the beginning of the eon of destruction. And then following that, animals and craving spirits being born, they are being born on other planets because there's nowhere for them to be born here anymore, right? And humans reach the meditative attainment of the first level of the form realm. That's the level at which we can see emptiness directly. Now, whether they do or not, it doesn't say, but they reach that meditative level, and then they die, and they take rebirth in the form realm. So obviously, they haven't seen emptiness directly. And then beings in that first level of the form realm, they attain the second level of the form realm meditation, and they die and are reborn there. So everything in the desire realm empties out up to the second level of the form realm. And it takes 19 intermediate eons for the desire realm to empty out after the process has started at the beginning of the eon of destruction. And then there's something called Barkal, which are the 20 intermediate eons. It's all very technical, which the Abhidharma is very technical about these things. So there's these intermediate eons, and they make up, there's 20 of them, and they make up the eon of destruction. So at the beginning, remember, it takes 19 intermediate eons for beings to empty off the planet. So at the beginning of the 20th eon, all the rain stops and all the vegetation dies. The sun supernovas. It gets huge and it splits into two. Then later, a third sun forms and all the rivers and streams dry up. Then a fourth sun forms and all the large lakes dry up. And then a fifth sun forms and the oceans dry up. And then the sixth sun forms and continents go up into smoke. A seventh sun, forms, and the planet burns up, which also causes the first level of the form realm to burn up. So that's a kalpa of destruction by fire. There are also kalpas of destruction by wind or water. There are also minor destruction eons where inhabitants destroy the planet with weapons like bombs and things that happen as well. And millions of years pass between the formation of each new sun. And then we have the Chakve Kalpa, the next one, the eon of formation. And it goes on for a length of 20 intermediate eons. And it just has a downward slope. It just lasts as long as 20 intermediate eons would. It doesn't like go up and down. It doesn't have a structure like that. It just goes down. And it lasts as long as 20 intermediate eons would. And in a time length which is equal to one intermediate eon, the physical basis for the world forms. Disks, mountains, etc., as we described earlier. And the first beings who take birth have bodies which, they're bodies of light, they radiate light. They fly around in the sky, they're gentle. Everything on the planet you can eat just by licking, by licking any sustenance. Kind of like what's described in the Christian Bible, the Garden of Eden, right? Then they slowly start to collect bad deeds. And their bodies, of course, change. Human lives at this point are immeasurable. It's like a specific number with 30 zeros after it. Can't really say. So this is the planet, the world regenerating again. It's forming again. And the formation eon ends when the first being is born in the lowest hell. And lifespans have dropped to 80,000 years at this point. Only 4 zeros after a number, not 30. And then there's Repakalpa, which is the continuation eon. So we have destruction, formation, continuation, and it goes on for 20 intermediate eons as well. And lifespans, they were 80,000, right? But during the continuation eon, they dropped down to 10 years. Why? Because people are doing the 10 non-virtues more and more and more, which creates disturbances in the world. People create more and more powerful weapons. Most people are living in cities. There are some people out in the country when the weapons of destruction are unleashed, and only they survive. And those who do survive, they are overcome with remorse. They realize what's been going on, why things have been destroyed, and they decide to give up the 10 non-virtues. Lifespans increase from 10 years back up to 80,000 years. And the same cycle keeps repeating. And one cycle is an intermediate eon. And again, remember, the eon of continuation is made up of 20 intermediate eons. So the world is destroyed 20 times by people. And then there's this whole explanation. I'm going to read it to you. It says the first intermediate eon is only half a wave, but the drop in lifespan is slower in that eon. So it ends up taking the same length of time as the other intermediate ones. And the same is true of the last intermediate eon. One moment of anger directed at a bodhisattva destroys an intermediate eon's worth of virtue. Kind of puts it in perspective, doesn't it? And we don't know who a bodhisattva is. We don't know who among us is a bodhisattva. So we should try really hard not to get angry at anyone, right? We don't want to destroy an intermediate eon's worth of goodness. And maybe that person who you want to get angry at is just testing you to see at what level you're at with dealing with your anger, with where you are with your wisdom and how you have integrated it into your life. And then the last eon, the Kalchen, the great eon. This is one great eon is 80 intermediate eons long. And I believe this refers to 4 eons of continuation, the Repakalpa. Right? So how long, we're talking about time, right? Worlds coming and going, being destroyed and being created. How long does it take to become an enlightened being? After you decide to begin collecting the goodness to become an enlightened being, it takes 3 countless eons. And this is what that looks like. It takes Jangme Sumla Sangye, 3 countless eons to become Buddha Sangye. To collect enough virtue to sustain the perception, right? It's a perception of yourself as a Buddha in paradise forever. And this is 59 zeros. 10 followed by 59 zeros. So 60 zeros really after the 1. So the Abhidharma says takes that amount of time. And the period in which Buddhas appear is called Kalpa Sangpo. It is the eon of good fortune. And we are living in the eon of good fortune because 1,000 Buddhas in total will have appeared during this eon. You know, Buddhists don't appear when things are really good and cushy and comfortable. They appear when things are getting worse. Why? Because we get interested in why we have problems. We want to get out of our suffering. And generally speaking, Buddhists don't appear in a period below 100 years lifespan, which is pretty much where we are now. People are living, the top of the range there is 100, 120, 130. And once it drops below that, then beings don't have suitable faculties to grasp the message. So we know we're not there yet because we're here, right? And why don't they have suitable facilities or faculties, right, to understand the message? Is because it's too near to blowing up. And beings have too much ingrained negativity. So Buddhas appear when lifespans have dropped from 80,000 years down to 100. And lower than that, nobody can grasp the teachings. So there are 5 degenerations, and they exist in our time, and they are spreading. And it's a sign that the Kalpa's end is approaching. We're getting close to the time when people are no longer interested in the Dharma. They might be scholars and study it, but they don't put it into their lives. They don't practice it. People stop keeping it in their hearts, and that's the beginning of the end of the eon. Let me see. No. Oh, not ready for that yet. So the 5 degenerations, what are they? 1, human life is very fragile. There are many diseases, the body is weak, and it's easy to die. And then we have negative thoughts. Nomos, number 2. Unordained people won't be interested in doing good deeds. They're not attracted to doing good. And then number 3, living beings, we have lousy bodies. They're not in great shape. They're not strong, coordinated, well-proportioned. They don't serve us well. Number 4, time. Because of time, food loses its ability to nourish us and to keep us alive and healthy. So the benefits which food and medicine supply, they diminish over time. And then tawa, you may know that word from keeping the 10 deeds, good deeds. Tawa, worldview, proper worldview. Ordained people are not virtuous. So they're not virtuous either. So those are the 5 degenerations that happen when an eon is coming to a close. That's, oh, let's go back. That's in this area here, right? So death. Chiwa, death, Mitakpa, impermanence, right? And then we have Drempa Gompa. Chiwa Drempa Gompa. Drempa means to remember or to recollect, and Gom or Gompa means meditation. So this is a special Lam Rim meditation. It's a death awareness meditation. Or death awareness habituation, we can say. And it is an all-day practice. You remember that you can die at any moment. You feel or know. And so when you get up in the morning, you say, I'm going to die today. What would I be doing if today were my last day? So you have an awareness that death means you are living today as if it were your last day. Would you be doing what you're doing if it were your last day? Right? It's a very powerful way to think because it weeds out all of the extra stuff that's not important. You would probably stop arguing with people because what's the point? You're just going to die today. Life's too short, right? You would do what is only important. And there are 4 parts to this meditation. And there are also 6 problems that will come to you if you don't meditate on death. And that's what we're going to go through right now. The disadvantages of not meditating on death. So first, you don't do Dharma. Sorry. If you don't do death meditation, then you'll concentrate on the small pleasures of life, on food and clothes, etc. And they'll become your main focus of your day. And you won't even be thinking about Dharma. You consider death, this is the second one, but you think it will happen to you later. That's pretty much where I am. It's not going to happen today, but do I know? No. So with that kind of attitude, we delay undertaking doing good things because we believe, oh, it's going to happen later, and that you can do your virtue later. If you continue with that kind of attitude, later never comes. Because we don't know, do we? The third one is you do practice, but you only do it so you look good. It's only for your reputation. Our natural motivation is from some kind of self-interest and self-concern. And this, what's the word I want to use? This You become more focused on that if you don't do death meditation. It becomes more prominent in your life. Number 4, you practice, but you're not so enthusiastic about it. Without death meditation, you just do your practice the same way over and over, and eventually you drop it. It's got no juice, no enthusiasm to it. But if you were thinking about, I could die today, it would probably give it some good juice, right? Number 5, you get deeper into this life. You get more invested in it, more entrenched in this life. You think you need the lifestyle, the leisure, the money, the activities, and you get accustomed to that as you get older. You get sucked into it and you get stuck in just mundane, neutral, non-virtuous activities. And then the last one is if you have intense regret at death that your life was wasted. You're sorry for how you lived your life, and you didn't change your heart or your nature or your character during your life. You didn't use your precious human rebirth. And so there's great regret at the time of shedding this life. The second meditation, remember I said there were 4 different parts to it, are the advantages, yay, of meditating on death. 1, your practice is pure. You're doing it for the right reasons, not for others' approval. And you also practice more. Your practice gets strong. Because if you felt you were going to die, you get really serious and you concentrate hard and you have a very strong, powerful practice. Because it's your last meditation before you die. It's possible it could be that, right? And this helps you to get started. It motivates you to get into your meditation and give up something else. You know, maybe you were going to go and have breakfast with a friend, but you decide that you're going to stay and meditate instead, that is more important. So at this point, your personal practice comes first before everything else, including Dharma work. 4, it keeps you going. I think we all know who've been doing this for a while that our practice has ups and downs. And when your practice is down, death meditation helps you lift it back up. Number 5, it gets you to the end. So when you're practicing and you reach, a hard spot, like you're sitting in meditation and you're just feeling a little stuck and you're 75% there, and then your attention starts to fade. Anybody know that feeling? Yeah, right. Then death meditation keeps you going and gets you to the end. And the last one, this number 6, is you die with satisfaction rather than regret. So as you get near the end, your choices provide more satisfaction. And the older you get, the more wisdom you see of the choices that you made in your life. And you feel like I did the right thing by choosing Dharma activity. And this will pay off as I move into the next part of my life at the time of death, right? The third meditation, Chidren Jitakye. This is, what kind of death awareness do we want to develop? A, it's not paying attention to or trying to recreate the panic or the terror that you'll feel at death. Those come on because your mind is hallucinating and having delusions and grasping at things of this world, which you are losing. That's not what we want to pay attention to. Lama Tsongkhapa says there is a kind of terror that a person can feel when he or she fears that they are about to be torn away from their loved ones and such. This fear stems from a very strong attachment for those around you and is the natural fear of a person who has never attempted any kind of practice of the path. So as such, it is not the awareness of death that we are talking about having to develop here. So the first one's telling us what we don't want to focus on. And then what we do is learning to focus on the things in this life which will affect us after we die. This, in fact, is a minimum motivation to be a Buddhist, to work for our next life. And some more quotes. There is not a single being who has taken on a body like ours, one created by the force of our past deeds and negative thoughts, who is exempt from the absolute certainty of death. It is true that in the short run, trying to develop some fear about this fact might not enable you to stop it. Did you get that, Koi? Okay. Nonetheless, you really must try to develop some fear that you might die before you have been able to achieve your goals of your future life. That you might die before you have managed to put an end to anything that might cause you to be born in one of the lower realms, or before you have achieved all those things that would lead you to the higher realms and to ultimate good. If we had this kind of fear over these kinds of things, then it would help us to do something about them. And at the moment of death itself, you would have no reason whatsoever to be afraid. If, on the other hand, you find yourself unable to achieve these goals, then when death comes, you will be tormented by regret. It is regret of two different kinds. In a general sense, you will realize that you are unable to free yourself from the circle of suffering. And more specifically, you will begin to feel terror over the possibility of having to drop into the realms of misery. But let's take a moment here and remember that if we understand the pen, and if we use it in our lives, then we are on the second path, the path of accumulation. And we cannot drop down to the realms of misery. If we forget where things are coming from. Not for short periods of time, but we just kind of give it up in this life, then I would agree that we can be scared of dropping into the lower realms. And that doesn't mean we get lazy and stop working, right? We have to keep going. We have to keep creating and planting new good seeds and keep the cycle going. And then the fourth meditation, right? The only thing which you can bring with you beyond death is your mind and what's in it. And what's in your mind is based upon what we thought, what we did, what we said during our lifetime. So death is certain, nothing can stop it. When your time comes, you go. You can't add time to your life. With each breath, we're getting closer to our death. Life here on this planet is finite, and everything we do, even sitting in this class, brings us closer to death. And also we have no time to practice while we're alive. You know as well as I do, even if we want to practice, the day just flies by and we're tired at the end of the day and we haven't had time to practice, right? So when we die, nothing helps but the Dharma, what is in our minds. And those are the death awarenesses that we want to cultivate. Death is certain, the time of death is uncertain, and the only thing that's going to help us are our good seeds. Because we understand where things are coming from. So what about this number 2, the time of death is uncertain? Zamling saying, Neme, lifespans on our planet, in our world, are not fixed. There's no order to how long people live on this planet. Some die young, some die old. I was with a friend yesterday who's about my age, and she was telling me about people I know, and I haven't seen them in many years, who now have dementia. And we went for a walk, and she was like, can you walk on a fairly level surface? And was like, yeah. And then we wanted to go up this hill to see out over the ocean. And she was like, can you walk up that? I was like, yeah. And the reason she was asking is because friends of ours, our same age, no longer are able to do that. So we don't know when things are going to strike us, right? Bad and good people die instead of the good living and the bad dying. It seems totally random, right? And this eon that we're in, the ages are fluctuating from 80,000 to 10 years. They say that other planets and eons have fixed and ordered lifespans. But on this planet, during this eon, no. So, Chikyan Shintumang is that there are a lot of things that can kill you and not a lot that keeps us alive. And they're divided into 2, the things that can kill you. One is living things like animals, people, bacteria, your own cells in your body. And the second one is inanimate things like cars, like rocks. So things outside of you or things inside of you. They say like the 4 elements. So the 4 elements are Sa, earth, meaning your solidity, Chu, water, meaning the fluidity of your body, the fluids in your body. Mei, fire, which is the warmth that your body needs. And Lung, number 4, the breath that you need. And our own body's basic constitution is set to kill us eventually. If we live long enough, it's our own body which kills us. Otherwise, we get hit by a truck or killed by someone else. But in the wheel of life, The Lord of Death represents the elements of your body, which will kill you ultimately. Your lungs will fill up with fluids, your kidneys will stop working, your heart, right? We know. Sorry, excuse me. And then another reason that the time of death is uncertain is Lu Shintu Nyamchung. Your body is extremely delicate and easily hurt. You know, I got a thorn in my finger the other day, and I had to get it out with a needle, and it's still sore. It could get infected, and I could die from that. Our body is fragile like a bubble, and we die easily. Right? So when we die, only the Dharma can help. That's Sun Kyen Yung. Our friends can't help us, our stuff can't help us, and even our body can't help us. Therefore, there's no time to waste. And we make 3 resolutions. Right? Knowing I will die, start to practice. Knowing I will die anytime, stop my worldly life, right? And start to practice now, today. 3, nothing else can help. Devote myself to my practice. So you might be going, I can't sit all day. Is that what we should be doing? Maybe for some. But if you see every event that happens to you as happening to you for the purpose of leading you to enlightenment, that is practicing. Why did that person say that to me? Why did I stub my toe? I was with a friend yesterday. Well, I'm in California because I lived here for many, many years. I visit with my friends. And in her life, she's had 2 fires. First, her house burned down. And then maybe 10 years later, her place of that she had created, that I, in fact, had helped create with her. It was a fabric printing studio. It also burned down. And it was really interesting talking with her yesterday because we were talking about that. And she said, yeah. And every time I had a fire was when I needed to change something and I couldn't decide what to do. And it forced me to decide. I no longer had a choice. Okay? Something leading her on rather than a tragedy. Yes, it was a tragedy. She didn't lose her life. She didn't get hurt. It was just stuff. And she saw it in this light of not, oh, this, so horrible for me, but it helped me. So if we see everything as being done by holy beings to help us reach enlightenment, that is doing our practice. So make a resolution, a fourth resolution, to think of everything and everyone as holy all the time in every circumstance. And I'll share a little secret with you. This is the diamond way. And your meditation for this class is to meditate on the day that you become an enlightened being. What are you going to look like? What's your Buddha paradise going to be like? What's that day when you finally reach the goal? The thoughts in your mind and your heart. So don't get depressed about death. It's just to have that awareness so that we don't waste this lifetime. Especially when we're young, we don't think we're going to die. We're like invincible, right? Nothing's going to hurt us. When you get to my age, it's kind of like, oh, I'm still here. This is amazing. And we use that to remind ourselves of who we are becoming and how to get there. So thank you for being here. Thank you for thinking about these things, being willing to think about your death and how it can help you to live your life to your fullest capacity, right? And help each other. Help this world to become a sweeter, kinder, healthier place. So thank you all, and I will see you next week.
Thank you very much for such a beautiful class, Ven Gyelse.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Please stay with us.
That's your karma. You got to work on that.
You, teacher.
You stay with me. That's what I have to work on. Right. Thank you. Thank you to all of the interpreters. I was watching Khoi because I know that translating into Vietnamese and into Russian can take a little longer. And so I hope I paced it well. And thank you to all of the people who organized this class, all of the tech people, everybody who supports us, and to you, the students. Thankful to everybody. And see you next week. Bye.
Goodbye, teacher.
Bye.
Благодарю.
Thank you so much, teacher. Please stay.